Wanted to take you through one of my a case study that I have of a recent client, a corporate client that I've had that I work with, and the goal of this client, she manages a team, and her team really wasn't making the right type of impressions with senior stakeholders. So they needed, as a part of their jobs, to influence senior stakeholders, and that wasn't happening. She really wanted to elevate her team to become strategic contributors, and she wanted to help her team uh, get a seat at the table, be influential, be seen as strategic, have great ideas, and less tactical. So those were her goals. And then the challenges that we identified together, her team at that time was only being recognized for the tactical deliverables, like the to-do list. So they would be told to do something, they do it, they do a good job, but that was it. They weren't asked to give opinions, they weren't asked to present ideas. That was it. Just go and do, they did, and that was it. And the team wasn't satisfied with that. They didn't understand why they weren't seen as experts, but they were just delivering the to-do list. So they're not perceived by the experts as they're from the senior stakeholders, and the reason why is they were only doing the job. So we identified those challenges, and really they also had a limited exposure. So if you're only talking to leadership in these scheduled catch-ups that you have to have, like that, 30-minute catch-up of what deliverables need to be done, that's not the right level of exposure, and especially if the leader set that up. So we had to talk about that particular challenge, and the team was solely focused on their objective performance. I've done the job, I've delivered what I was supposed to do. Why don't I have more influence? And so they had actually gone to my client and said, we need help to be more influential. And as a good manager, she talked to me, and we got this plan going. So the assets that this team had. So we talk about that, or I've been talking about that they weren't seen as strategic partners, but they were really smart people. They were highly skilled, they're really good at what they did, but they were stuck in, I'm only delivering, the objectives. I'm not looking at some of the quality features, the subjective performance, and things like that. So they had been recognized for delivering quality work, but the quality work that they had been asked to do, not the thoughts that they had. And then they were the ones who came to their manager for this. They had a willingness to learn. They wanted to change. They wanted this to happen. So they were very open-minded when we talked through some of the things with them. So those were the great assets. And of course, the bottlenecks. They really didn't have an understanding of why this was happening. Like, why, if they did such a good job, they weren't getting the recognition or have the influence that they wanted to have. Why weren't they making the impressions that they wanted to make? So they really had a lack of understanding of the difference between objective performance and subjective performance. So the difference of that is objective performance is I delivered what I said I was going to deliver. Subjective performance is that the way in which the receiver wanted it? So if you think about, you're going to go to a restaurant and you're going to get a fantastic steak. It's really yummy, and you know that the steak is yummy no matter whether you put it on a paper plate or you put it on a porcelain plate. But the subjective performance is how that plate is dressed. It's what's on the sides of it. How does that food look? The objective performance is the tasty steak. So those were some of the things that they didn't understand. And they really weren't managing their image. They weren't looking at, how do I come across? What things do I say about myself? How do I talk about myself? Or do I just go and deliver what I was told to? Because if you're not talking about yourself as a thought leader, nobody is thinking about yourself as a thought leader. You have to say it. You have to believe it. And really, they didn't have a visibility plan. They were only showing up in the meetings that were already scheduled. They weren't visible. They were missing opportunities to actually be seen and show the knowledge that they had. So lack of visibility with the senior stakeholders was another bottleneck. So here's what we did. These are the key steps that I talked about with my client to help her team. So we had to redefine what influence meant. We had to actually define that for them to show them how do you influence someone? And it isn't just fulfilling the to-do list. There's a lot more to it than that. We talked about building personal narratives, and I use my framework to help them build that narrative for maximum influence. So really focusing on who am I and what do I want. And they also needed to strengthen their exposure. So who can help them with what they want? Who can help them in their career? And how do you then help the people that you're trying to influence? So that's the exposure part. And then, really, for the leader herself, put the money where her mouth is. She had to make that. She made that a part of a part of the team's actual performance objectives for this year. So, making sure that they had a plan for creating their personal narrative and having an exposure strategy of making sure they were booking coffee chats with these leaders or volunteering within the organization to do different things that weren't necessarily a part of their day job, or if there's internal social media, posting something about an article that they've read or a conference that they've gone to or something that they've learned. And then the other thing that they were working on, they're still in progress with this. It hasn't been baked in quite yet, but they're still working on it, is doing the same thing with externals. So you can do that within a company. That's one audience area, but your career is long. You're not necessarily going to spend your whole time at one company. You need to be known in your industry. You need to be known externally as well. And that actually helps you internally. So being known in your field as an expert outside the organization can help you be seen as an expert inside the organization and vice versa. So they're currently working on their external exposure. And the results, immediately when they had their own personal narrative and they were able to talk about themselves and really what they wanted within the organization, whether that's what they wanted to do their job or what they wanted individually, they started making better impressions, even with their own colleagues, even with the people around them. So they started to see that people were perceiving them in a different way. And then also, using the strategies that we talked about for exposure, they started to see that they were becoming more visible and people were reacting to them and seeing them more. So the fact that you put yourself out there, it's even though it's uncomfortable, you will be seen more, you will have more visibility, and people will start to think, if you're putting up, your opinion on certain things in the industry, you start to become, somebody who is industry leading, or you have a lot of knowledge of that particular industry. And this is great. The senior stakeholders are actually noticing. So the report back to me is that they're actually consulting the team now for their opinions. They have the influence that they were looking for. And fairly soon, I believe they're going to get that seat at the table that they were looking for. So if this sounds like you, if you're a leader of a team and you need your team to have more influence, book a game plan call with me today. We can talk it through. This could be you. I would love to work with you on this. This is something I'm really passionate about. So look forward to talking to you.